Well, thank you all so much. This is making me feel real tall here. not a man of great stature, but that's okay. Well, I'm certainly excited about being here. It's not like I do this a lot and all over the country or anything. It's just when opportunities present themselves, I certainly don't shy away from the opportunity to come and share my story and meet new people and advance the concept of secularism, atheism, humanism, free thought, all that stuff. So the idea of being able to come and visit with you guys is a great opportunity for me, and certainly looking forward to meeting you personally and learning more names and things like that. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about my perspective on the state of the nation. And that's going to come from a more, obviously from a secular perspective. So we'll get into that. One of the first things I want to do, though, is I want to share something that I discovered here probably within the last month. And it's an organization called the Earth Charter Initiative. And they have a website that's called earthcharterinaction.org. And I really fell in love with their preamble. And it says that we stand at a critical moment in Earth's history, a time when humanity must choose its future. As the world becomes increasingly interdependent and fragile, the future at once holds great peril and great promise. To move forward, we must recognize that in the midst of a magnificent diversity of cultures and life forms, we are one human family and one Earth community with a common destiny. We must join together to bring forth a sustainable global society founded on respect for nature, universal human rights, economic justice, and a culture of peace. Towards this end, it is imperative that we, the peoples of the earth, declare our responsibility to one another, to the greater community of life, and to future generations. When I found that, it just resonated so perfectly with who I am now. I wasn't like this in 2005. I had a different idea about life, and that's because I was still ingrained in religion. I am Southern boy, and y'all can't say that boy stuff. You know why. But I'm a Southern gentleman. I grew up in a little town in Alabama, Fayette, Alabama, about 40 miles north of Tuscaloosa. I moved, graduated from high school in 1970, went to college at Tennessee State University, which is in Nashville, got a degree in electrical engineering, moved to Houston in 1975, and worked for various companies using my engineering education skills, things like that. And then in 2002, I started my own engineering firm, which I'm still actively participating, where I design mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems for commercial buildings. And that was a integral part of my free thought, the opportunity to be able to do that. I am married, 32 and a half years now, same woman. And we have one daughter. She's 27, and it's interesting. I have two sisters, and they are obviously, well, not obviously to you all, but they are still in the religious perspective. And so, just briefly, my journey started in 2003, where I was actually this particular mega church that I was a member of. In fact, I was a deacon there. This is actually at that particular time, it was probably the largest black church in Houston. And there was an issue regarding the pastor. And he was actually caught in a homosexual scandal. And it really put the church in a kind of a very difficult situation. Now, at that particular time, I'm totally enthralled, engulfed, committed to Christianity. So everything about my life was kind of conducted from the things that I had learned, either from Christianity or some other aspects of Christianity. I was raised pretty much a Baptist. And so the way in which I responded to this scandal was basically guided by the Bible. So the Bible teaches you not to be receptive to homosexuality. It's actually a sin. You don't participate in that. And so the idea of being able to deal with this with your pastor was very challenging. And the church had to decide how to deal with this. And it was on local television. Actually, it got some national coverage. And so the church basically had to make a decision about how to respond. So we had a big meeting, large vote of membership, and by a small margin, the membership decided that he would remain the pastor. But my family and many other families did not see that as being the right position to take, so we left the church. So my message to my wife was that as we are leaving, I'm going to be looking for a different type of church. I'll be looking for a church that focuses more on proper teaching and less focus on bigness. Big building, huge choir, huge attendance, all the nice things that you see at mega churches. And so a lot of it is just a facade. But the idea that I was going to find a place that focused strictly on the truth of the word, as I called it at that particular time. So what that led me into was a challenging aspect of trying to find a new church, but it also led me into a deeper study of the Bible, a more committed task of learning about Christianity and other religions. And in fact, I enrolled in the local Bible college to learn about how to teach the Bible and to be more in depth about this. So what happened from this perspective is that I was converted. Being in the church all my life, I was converted into a deeper life. So I started reading the Bible more. I started praying more. I started listening to the Christian radio station every day. And so from a period of 2003 for probably the next two years, I had a real, almost insane commitment to Christianity and the life of Jesus. And so my wife and some other family and friends thought I was being called to the ministry. And so I thought that too, because it was pretty amazing the kind of changes that I was going through, just kind of emotionally, mentally, in the way I was looking at religion now. So I was seeing the reality of Jesus and what he was trying to teach. I saw it as real. And I was trying to walk the life of Jesus. And so, but then I kept studying. And in that process, I think we I joined 3, maybe 4 different churches because I just couldn't find the right one, primarily because I was running to these professional scam artists. That's the preachers. So I was running into more of them, and it was just, I was being able to recognize them a little easier. So it was like, okay, now I got to go. Found out about him, got to move on down the road. So by, I guess after a couple of years, this is probably 05, my study, I just continued. And then I think one of the things that started my movement out of Christianity was I started studying the difference between Jesus and Paul. And what that did is that it gave me a little more knowledge in regards to the untruths, contradictions, and things like that the Bible represents and was in the Bible. And so the idea of me spending time to study that Paul might be a hypocrite, or he may be this person that became the model for Christianity, and his message seems to override the message of Jesus, which was pretty common particularly in the Baptist church. So I started seeing Paul as this. He doesn't represent anything that Jesus does. He doesn't quote Jesus, never met the man. So the idea of him being this model for the church, but yet still he's never talked about Jesus, never talked about Jesus being crucified, never talked about Jesus rising from the dead at this particular location. None of these things that gives you an indication of a historical Jesus. Paul never talks about those kind of things. And I started wondering and I started learning that something ain't right about that. So I kept studying, and then I was able to find, I think the first secular person that I ran into was Ingersoll, Robert Greene Ingersoll. Yeah, and that's just so happened to find him on the internet. Okay, so I got just overwhelmed with him, and so the way in which he was presenting it, which also means that apparently I had opened up enough mentally to even want to read him. So it made me available. So I started reading more about Ingersoll, and the guy's just incredible. So the idea that I started reading him, then I ran into Bertrand Russell, started reading him. And but in the process, I had already started studying the life of W.E.B. Du Bois, and I didn't know about this black man, even though he's mentioned sometime in Black history. But within the black community, they don't talk about W.E.B. and I know why now, because W.E.B. was basically more of an agnostic, lean toward atheist. But he did say that the idea of this God thing, this religion thing, it didn't make sense to him. And so I was just overwhelmed to read that from this incredible, important, historical black man that nobody in our history wants to tell us that part about him. So that's why the black community doesn't really know a lot about W.E.B. Du Bois, and they're not going to talk about him that much, particularly not as much as they talk about Martin Luther King. So, but W.E.B., to me, and in terms of his lifespan and the kind of work that he was doing, he was a lot more significant than Martin Luther King. Okay? But you're not going to learn that unless you study him and want to learn his history. So, by this time, this is around the summer of 2006, and I've gotten to the point now where it's like this religious stuff starting to sound shaky. This stuff may not be right. Then, Age of Reason, Thomas Paine. Voila.
Okay.
I'm done. I walk away because it was just so compelling the way he laid out his critique of religion. And it's interesting because it was, I was just lucky that I found him, because keep in mind that this is self-study. I'm not spending a lot of time with people in Houston or anywhere else getting this information. This is my pursuit of a different thought process about religion. And so I'm doing this on my own, late at night, and all this stuff. And what's interesting about this is it was so emotional in what I was about to do after reading The Age of Reason, until there was a couple of nights where I shed tears. Because of the fact that I understood what I was doing and what transition I was about to make. And the religious aspect of the black community and the way it's ingrained, and my sister, my older sister, says, "You better be glad mom and dad had died." Because you probably would have been gone before then. So that was the way she kind of related. She says, it was easy for you to do that because you didn't have to confront them. You didn't have to deal with them. You didn't have to ask their opinion about it. So, and that might have some truth. I don't know, but I'm not concerned about that. That's the way life has taken us. But one thing about it is that what I did realize about the kind of person that I am is that I did not have any fear to share this with other people. And my attitude was that what I've learned and the way I had defined it, most likely a lot of people don't know about this. So I'm going to tell them. I'm going to talk about it. I wasn't concerned about how they were going to respond. I wasn't concerned about them disliking me, kicking me out of friendship circles and kicking me out of family. I wasn't concerned. And the primary reason is because I felt that there was a good chance that if a lot of people hear this, they might respond the same way I did. Just because you don't know about it. So if you're introduced to something different, then how you're going to respond, you may not know. But it may be the best thing you could have heard at that particular time. So change is brought about most likely by new information. And that's what changed my life. So now, since September 2006, I've been a heathen. Yay! But anyway, it has been an interesting journey. The way in which I've had to interact with my friends and talk about this. I'm one of those guys that's a little more vocal about things and don't hesitate to really kind of share my thoughts and opinions about things. And so I kind of look forward to having conversations with other Christians about this. But it's not to try to belittle them or to be antagonistic or anything like that. It's to present some thoughts that maybe they hadn't considered before. Maybe they hadn't looked at it that way before. And so it becomes the challenge of ideals. So many of us are introduced to those things regularly. Some of them you accept, some of them you discard. So that's the way I've been proceeding with this newfound way of life. And so what I've done is I put that little information in my book. And that was, the writing of this book was my way of kind of sharing a little more details with primarily my family and friends. They were the ones I was writing this for. And my daughter motivated me primarily to write it because I had written an essay that I had sent to a lot of my friends and relatives. And that was kind of the foundation for the book. Because my daughter said, "Dad, you've already written this essay. You got a lot more to say. Why don't you just write the book?" And that's what happened. So she motivated me to do this. And so here's the book. The only prayer I'll ever pray, let my people go. And that title came from the concept that perspective of black people in the United States, we are somewhat enthralled with this idea that the way in which the children of Israel were in bondage. That's the identity that black people have with being in slavery and being oppressed in this country. So the idea that at some point, somebody, we're going to get that Savior or that Messiah or that leader that's going to bring us out of bondage, and he's going to tell them, or y'all, to let my people go. And that was the way in which I was thinking about this. But the way in which I thought about it was, man, we're trapped in religion. We're trapped every day praying for a God. It ain't doing anything for you. So that's what I'm saying. The last prayer I'm going to pray, yeah, let my people go out of this religious crap. That's what I'm saying. So that's how the title came about. So anyway, so the book is about, I brought a few, so if you guys want to get a copy, I certainly appreciate it. Well, I'm here to kind of share a perspective on the state of the nation. And some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about might make some of you all uncomfortable. Hope not, but you all are all free thinkers, right? Anybody not a free thinker in you? Okay, so you see, it's going to be good. It's going to be fine. So the idea of trying to understand a perspective of the state of the nation, let's look at a few things. So as I ponder the state of our nation, I have many questions, concerns, and a few observations. Has America become an empire of illusion? Are we so handicapped intellectually that we are unable to separate illusion from truth? Is celebrity culture and reality TV the cult of distraction? Is America perpetrating prosperity by borrowing trillions of dollars, knowing that they'll never pay it back? Have corporations that use mass media, entertainment, sports, and high-tech products to entice us taken over our government, including the Supreme Court? Is the war on drugs the new Jim Crow system for racial control? Is public education being converted to Wall Street investment opportunities called charter schools? What type of society actually permits monetary profiteering from its citizens' sickness and disease? Was the assassination of Osama bin Laden more important than demonstrating a justice system that promotes a man is innocent until proven guilty? Should God only bless America? Thomas Paine once stated, "It is the duty of a patriot to protect his country from his government." Webster's dictionary defines patriot as one who loves his country and upholds his interests. According to our dominant and highly influential media, most politicians and military personnel, former or present, are our true patriots. That's according to our media. They dedicate their lives to the service of their country, but occupying and performing the duties of a position does not unquestionably determine the love of country and unwavering concern for its interests. Thomas Paine clearly saw a distinction between a country and a government. A country is its people, and a government can be destructive to a country. Recognition of this distinction defines a patriot. In the United States today, and probably over the last century, our politicians, political appointees, and military personnel are more inclined to work for the government, not the country. George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Karl Rove, Oliver North, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, are they patriots? Not according to Thomas Paine. The men and women that died or received permanent injuries in Iraq and other wars, are they patriots? Possibly not. Just severely misled. I vote Bradley Manning for the True Patriot Award. And I hope his pictures are located throughout President Obama's future library in Chicago. W.B. Du Bois wrote in his book, Souls of Black Folks, discriminating and broad-minded criticism is what the South needs. Needs it for the sake of her own white sons and daughters, and for the assurance of robust, healthy mental and moral development. So as I paraphrase W.B., in respect to the United States, discriminating and broad-minded criticism is what the United States needs. Needs it for the sake of the neocons, the super rich, the want-to-be super rich, our worthless politicians, and for the assurances of human development throughout the world. Our military has become the world police and the Federal Reserve, the financial dictator. In the past decade, with the advent of the War on Terror and the Patriot Act, the evidence of a tyrannical government is prevalent. USAPATRIOT. You all know what that stands for? That's the Patriot Act. And it stands for uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. That's USAPATRIOT. That's the Patriot Act. Well, Thomas Paine says, when the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. Branding is a new word for the marketing and advertising industry. Public relations companies and publicists are paid mega dollars to create bright images. So try to imagine how much it's costing to rebuild Tiger Woods' image right now. The U.S. is branded as a great and powerful nation. But just because you hear something repeated from several sources, some are just kind of self-labeled as credible, that does not make it true just because they say it is. The function of truth is to bring light to the hidden facts, to set them in relation with each other, and make a picture of reality on which humans can act. It would be helpful to have the facts associated with the following. Something to think about. Facts. Can we find the facts about these things? Is the Federal Reserve System and its fiat currency a private cartel, and was it created legally according to the Constitution? What's the facts? Is the IRS a collection agent for the Federal Reserve? Did President Franklin Roosevelt know the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor? Was Oswald a lone gunman in the assassination of President Kennedy? Did James Earl Ray kill Dr. King? Were the events on 9/11 an inside job? And why did Building 7 collapse? Were the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq premeditated? Did the United States participate in the removal of John Bertrand Aristide as president of Haiti in 2004 and have suppressed that black nation economically? The facts. Where are the facts? See, if human activities are based on their beliefs, opinions without facts, that's what I call beliefs, and they can believe lies, then their actions can be based on lies. Truth causes transformation only when we submit to it. Humans who seek truth cannot resist the need to transform. At some point, everyone will be confronted with the powerful influence of truth. Change in response to truth can occur immediately or over a long and awful, painful period. Walter Lippmann, one of our well-known political writers and reporters, says, there can be no liberty for a community that cannot detect lies. The idea of thinking about the United States being a great nation. There are 4 substantial issues that prevent the United States, in my opinion, from being a great nation. 1, white supremacy and racism. 2, religion. 3, greed and the pursuit of wealth. Number 4, arrogance. The greatness of a nation is not defined by the vast availability of materialism. The greatness of a nation cannot be determined by just talking about democracy and freedom. The greatness of a nation has nothing to do with the size of its military. The U.S. Defense Department, better known as the military-industrial complex, has the largest budget, about over $700 billion right now, the largest of any other nation in the world. And it has bases or presence in over 130 foreign countries, our military. Regarding war, James Madison, the father of our Constitution, in 1795 says, quote, of all the enemies to public liberty, war is perhaps the most dreaded, because it comprises and develops the germ of every other. War is the parent of armies. From these proceed debts and taxes, known instruments for bringing the many under the domination of the few. No nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. Continual warfare. The war on terror is going to last forever. Continual warfare. James Madison, which president was he?
3.
Come on, talking now. Let's 4. All right, good. All right.
1 R.
Y'all got to catch up on your history now. All right. Getting back to the United States as a great nation. A great nation does not impose its way of life on other nations. Imagine a nation promoting democracy in other nations while allowing fraud in its own election process. Remember Florida in 2000? Remember Ohio in 2004? You see, a great nation protects the rights of all its citizens, regardless of race or financial status. Racism is the singling out of one group for oppression based on an observable physical characteristic. Racism is a historical invention by white capitalists. It is not a natural construct. Racism is not as apparent today as in the past, but every few months it'll raise its head to give us a reminder that it still exists. You see, in October 2009, there was a justice of the peace in Louisiana that declined a marriage license to this couple. And this couple was a black man, white woman. He made a decision that you all can't have a license. You don't qualify. And then this week, the George Zimmerman trial starts tomorrow. You know what happened with him, right? Within the situation with Trayvon Martin. So, let's see what happens. In order to maintain the system of racism, colonialism, and capitalist exploitation, the United States maintains a network of repressive structures. These structures include the police, the FBI, Homeland Security, CIA, Secret Service, prisons, private security companies, along with mass surveillance and mass incarceration. A nation that was supposedly founded on freedom of and from religion would not allow any particular religious group dominance over others. Try being a politician and not be a Christian. It is difficult to imagine former President George W. Bush, a devout Christian, praying for God to bless the Iraqi nation while he was authorizing the raining down of bombs on the citizens of Iraq. According to some estimates, there have been over 1 million Iraqi deaths due to the U.S.-led invasion that began in 2003. Over a million. What's going to be that number in Afghanistan? A nation that promotes Christian values but seems to thrive in war and the honoring of its war heroes is an irony. It's amazing how we just seem to love war. In regards to religion, there are only few human activities in our society where a religious expression or gesture is not offered. You have constant bless the food, have a blessed day, thank God for letting me score that touchdown. But it was not until I was able to expel myself from the grips of religion that I observed the incredible magnitude of religion. Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States. The Christian Wright and evangelicals have decided that America is a Christian nation founded on Judeo-Christian principles, regardless of the writings of the founding fathers, and they insist that the government and the politicians must embrace these concepts. Their voice is the loudest in the media, instigating war against Islam and secular societies. They're the loudest to fight against abortion and homosexuality. And then they try to control the content of our history books in schools. Very few of these history books recognize Thomas Paine, a true founding father that sparked the demand for our independence from Great Britain through his writing of The Common Sense, because in another one of his writings, Age of Reason, he exposes the fallacies of religions, especially Christianity. I've already kind of shared with you how what I think about Thomas Paine now, because he helped me to get out of religion. I mean, that's how important it was. But I also think he probably wrote the Declaration of Independence. Probably. I mean, Jefferson had slaves. All men are created equal. And why would Jefferson write that? Something about it. Religion is a system in which humans devise answers to unanswerable questions and then use that system to control and manipulate the thoughts and actions of other humans. History shows us that the slave owners did not approve of slaves learning to read, but encouraged and supported them in practicing their Christian religion. It was a well thought out plan to use religion and the teachings of the Bible to control the slaves. Their conversion to Christianity has resulted in a religious addiction in today's black community, and it is so dominant that very few people are courageous enough to challenge the grip of it. The harmfulness of religion goes far beyond the black community, though. In his book, Eternal Life Vision, a New Vision, this former bishop named John Shelby Spong said this: I believe that we misunderstand religion when we define it as activity engaged in a search for truth. Truth is not religion's ultimate agenda. Security is. Religion is thus revealed to be a human creation designed to meet human needs. When we look at religion from this perspective, it is not nearly as noble as we like to pretend, either in its origins or in its practices. Religion is not divinely inspired. It is sometimes quite manipulative human. Does it sound harsh? Perhaps it is. But that is the way truth is often perceived and truth can never be dismissed simply because it is inconvenient. Mr. Spohn. He has some, I found those books, some of his writings to be good for me, particularly when I was in that transition period. But anyway, he's had his life threatened, and he's not allowed to get out and talk much in pulpits and in churches and stuff like that, because he talks about this new Christianity. So he doesn't preach the Bible the same way. So he's not accepted. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest nation of them all? Well, according to our superiority complex, we're second to none. Never mind our dismal health rankings compared to many other industrialized nations, and considering the amount of money we spend on health care, and then most industrialized nations have universal health care. The Pledge of Allegiance should read this. The nation endowed by the invisible God in the sky, invincible with liberty and justice for rich white people. The United States is far from meeting the qualifications of a great nation, regardless of how often it is recited on Fox News. The best description of the USA, United States of arrogance, maybe just call us self-righteous. Now, many people are overwhelmed with joy and inspiration. Many people were overwhelmed with joy and inspiration in November 2008 to witness the election of the first black president. However, the week following that election, gun sales went up 49%, and that's according to the FBI. Now, I was excited too. I was joyful when Barack Obama got elected. But one thing about my attitude at that time, I wasn't overwhelmed by it. And the reason is because I didn't think that our society was going to move to this monumental change that he preached. I didn't have that much faith in him. In fact, I lack trust in most of the politicians today, including Mr. Obama. And the reason is because big money is what controls our politics. Big money controls the politicians and the media, and thereby influences the information we receive. So from that perspective, we are not getting the right information. So our election process is somewhat fraudulent. The Supreme Court reminded us that corporations are people too. And to look at this two-party system is not working. It's just a race for the White House. That's all it is. And furthermore, we should really tell the truth about what it takes to become a president. Well-spoken, well-programmed, commitment to ensuring that the corporate power stays intact. And one thing that's interesting, though, there has been some slight changes. Before George W. got in office, it used to be a prerequisite to have some intelligence. But obviously, you can make it without intelligence. So when you go to the polls to vote, be certain that a true patriot is on the ballot. Be certain your preferred candidate is not covertly supporting tyranny. But by the way, who's counting the votes and what's counting the votes? Never mind. The true patriot don't have a chance, so don't worry about it. But one of the things about the election of Barack Obama struck me like this, though, is that when I look at this from another angle, I'm comparing it to students in school. And that is, when students receive, they very seldom will receive credit and accolades and all this stuff when they turn in an assignment in May that was due in January. They don't get much credit for that. You know, The assignment is due, and then you're supposed to turn it in when it's due. Well, now that a black man is president, well, half black, the mainstream media, well, maybe not Fox News, but the mainstream media wants applause and accolades showered on America for finally moving beyond a racist society. Although the Constitution allowed for this over 200 years ago. Where is the apology to other black men that were just as qualified or more qualified? But they didn't have the opportunity. How many great black men were lynched or politically silenced or deprived of the opportunity to attend Harvard Law School? Without racism, what kind of man would my father have been? Maybe I would have been the son of a president. But Obama says this. He says, no more excuses. He says, as stated by the president during this college commitment at Morehouse about a month ago, he says there are no more excuses for black men. He says, because if a black person can be elected president now, black Americans can accomplish just about anything now in this colorblind society. But I ask you all, is this a colorblind society? The inclusion of non-whites as full partners in the American democratic process is still a very slow process, and President Obama has been largely agnostic and mostly silent on the race question. The Obama White House does not recognize issues of black Americans, such as high unemployment and prison population. This, according to Chris Hedges in his book, Death of the Liberal Class. Chris says, the election of Obama was one more triumph of illusion over substance. It was skillful manipulation and betrayal of the public by a corporate power elite. We mistook style and ethnicity for progressive politics and genuine change. The goal of a branded Obama, as with all brands, was to make passive consumers mistake a brand for an experience. Obama had almost no experience besides 2 years in the Senate, where his voting record was a dismal capitulation to corporate power. The American dream is about to turn into a nightmare. It is estimated that nearly 100 million Americans live below or fractionally above the poverty level. If my daughter decides to have children, I have concern for their welfare as adults and citizens in the United States, based on the current patterns and events. Conflict and overconsumption are much more prevalent than peace and conservation. Lies, deceit, and political correctness are preferable to the truth. How high will the price of oil get, and how long will we depend on fossil fuel? The oil spill in the Gulf in 2010 should concern each of us because environment and Earth's natural resources are worth protecting. In 20 years, how much will it cost for food, clothing, and shelter? My concern is, will they even have access to health care? In 20 years, how much will the next Alex Rodriguez be paid to play baseball? And Tom Cruise paid to make a movie? How much more money do Bill Gates and Warren Buffett need? How much will the gap increase between the haves and the have-nots? According to Washington, D.C.-based Economic Policy Institute, the gap is getting wider. The top 1% families now boast 225 times more wealth than the median U.S. family. In 2012, the average CEO pulled in $9.7 million, compared to the average worker earning $39,900. The world of the super elite is vastly different from us regular folks. However, Being wealthy may not be the answer, according to Albert Einstein. In his book, The World as I See It, he says, I'm absolutely convinced that no wealth in the world can help humanity forward, even in the hands of the most devoted worker in the cause. The example of great and pure characters is the only thing that can produce fine ideas and noble deeds. Money only appeals to selfishness and always tempts its owners irresistibly to abuse it. And as we can see, Mr. Einstein had a pulse on what it means to be rich. Just last month, this billionaire owner of the San Francisco Giants rented out the AT&T Park, the stadium where the Giants play, $500,000 to a hedge fund manager so his buddies could run the stadium and get in the batting cage. That's the kind of stuff rich people do. And can you all imagine paying $1 million for a wristwatch? That's the kind of stuff rich people do. So, to experience peace in this universe, do all nations have to be a democratic society like the great USA? How much more liberty in the future will be sacrificed due to contrived terrorism? Following 9/11, the Patriot Act, a 340-page document, was produced and passed within 45 days. The plan to attack Iraq was developed 3 years prior to 9/11 by the neocon think tank Project for a New American Century. I encourage you all to please read about that. The tragedy on September 11, 2001 was their new Pearl Harbor. It only motivated them to do what they needed to do. So, who or what would provide the jobs for common everyday working folks in small town America like Fayette, Alabama, where I came from, where there are no factories? The town is basically dying. Or for recent college graduates that can't find jobs, but have spent the money on education in debt, $50,000, $60,000, but can't find a job. Without jobs, towns and communities die economically, and people become homeless. Jobs have been shipped away to other countries for the lowest hourly wage to produce greater profits, increasing human exploitation. If my wife and I are fortunate to have grandchildren, their future is bleak. They will have to navigate society under much worse conditions if this current system continues. They may need a graduate level degree to be a manager at Walmart, particularly if Wall Street continues to take over the education system. But maybe too much is expected from a nation that was built on the institution of slavery.